Imagine this in the heart of Burkina Faso, far from the watchful satellites of Paris and Washington, far from the intelligence briefings of NATO and the IMF, a hidden hangar hums with life. No journalists were invited, no foreign contractors were consulted, no French advisors were called. Inside that hangar, something extraordinary is being born. Not just metal, not just engines, not just wires, but an idea. An idea too dangerous for colonizers to tolerate, too powerful for empires to control. For decades, we were told that Africa could not build without permission. That our blueprints must be stamped by the World Bank. That our fuel must be rationed by aid. That our engineers must be educated abroad and return only as apprentices in someone else's factory. But here, in this secret hangar, a generation of Burkina youth has chosen a different path. They are not waiting for instructions. They are designing their own ship. Do you understand the magnitude of that choice? To build in silence is to defy centuries of dependency. To construct in secrecy is to declare that we no longer require validation from those who enslaved us. This hangar is more than steel and shadows. It is the womb of sovereignty. The youth inside it are not rich. They are not backed by billion-dollar investors. Their tools are simple, their hands calloused, their knowledge stitched together from textbooks, experiments, and pure imagination. But they possess something the colonizers never imagined we could hold on Traore, the will to invent. Every bolt they tighten, every circuit they test, every line of code they write is a quiet rebellion, a whisper that says, we will not remain grounded, and the world outside, silent. France does not know. The West has no clue. They believe we are still crawling, still begging, still waiting for crumbs. They cannot imagine that in Ouagadougou, in dusty towns, and under the vast African night sky, a spaceship is being assembled piece by piece. They cannot fathom that Africa might lift itself beyond their reach. This is why the hangar is hidden. Not because we are afraid, but because we are wise. We know that when the colonizer hears the sound of engines, he does not clap. He sabotages. He does not celebrate. He sanctions. He does not assist. He invades. So we work in silence, building the impossible, preparing the unthinkable. And make no mistake, the day will come when the doors of this hangar open. The day will come when engines roar and the earth trembles beneath a ship, built not with permission, but with courage. That day will not simply be a launch. It will be a revelation. A message to every African child who was told to lower their gaze. You are not passengers on someone else's craft. You are pilots of your own destiny. The hidden hangar is not just in Burkina Faso. It is in every village where youth dream. It is in every classroom where a teacher inspires. It is in every hand that refuses to surrender. And when those hangars open, the world will see what it never believed Africa can fly. Outside the hangar, the world pretends to hear nothing. The Western media, so quick to report chaos, so eager to magnify famine, suddenly becomes deaf. They can broadcast the rustle of a protest in the streets of Paris, but they cannot hear the roar of invention rising in Ouagadougou. They can spotlight every weakness in Africa, but when Africa dares to create, the cameras mysteriously turn away. Why? Because silence is a weapon. Silence is not ignorance. Silence is strategy. France knows. Washington knows. Brussels knows. Yet they remain quiet, not because they are blind, but because acknowledgement is dangerous. To admit that Burkina Faso is building, that Africa is inventing, that youth are designing ships for tomorrow, would shatter the myth they have sold for generations, that we cannot move without their engines, that we cannot dream without their permission. Think of it when a child begins to crawl, the whole family celebrates. But when a colonized people begin to stand, the empire pretends not to notice. They know that if they speak, the truth spreads. If they deny it, the evidence grows. If they fight it, the people unite. So they choose silence, a silence meant to strangle the story before it escapes the hangar. But silence cannot bury sound forever. The hum of machines, the laughter of youth engineers, the rhythm of progress. It leaks through the cracks. The villagers hear it. The students whisper about it. The farmers talk about it in the fields. A spaceship is being built, and the silence of the West becomes louder than their words. Because in that silence, they confess their fear. They fear not the ship itself, but what it represents, a sovereign Africa. An Africa that invents designs, launches without them. An Africa that is not asking for loans, not waiting for permission, not kneeling for approval. They know that once one ship rises, others will follow. Once one nation defies gravity, the rest will no longer accept chains. And so they stay quiet, hoping the world will not notice. But brothers and sisters, we must notice. We must name the silence for what it is, a desperate attempt to contain our future. Their silence is not our weakness. It is their alarm bell. It tells us we are on the right path. It tells us that our engines are working, that our prototypes are real, that our youth have become too dangerous to ignore. The West may try to cover its ears, but it cannot cover the sky. The day our hangars open, the day our ships ignite, silence will break into thunder. And the same voices that once dismissed us will have no choice but to look up. They will ask, how did Africa rise without us? And our answer will be simple: we never needed you. We only need it ourselves. The news finally slips through the cracks, not through the polished headlines of CNN or BBC, but through whispers, murmurs, and the unstoppable current of truth that no empire can fully contain. Somewhere in Morocco, during a private gathering of Western allies, the rumor spreads like wildfire. Burkina Faso is building something the world was never supposed to see. At first, they dismiss it. Impossible, they say. How can a small African nation, without IMF loans, without French engineers, without American advisors, dare to construct ships that defy gravity? But denial soon crumbles, because evidence cannot be silenced forever. Photos leak, reports surface, whispers grow louder, and suddenly anger erupts. Trump, in his usual thunderous tone, slams the table. His voice echoes through the gilded hall in Morocco. How could this happen? How do we not see it? Who let them build without our oversight? His rage is not about Burkina Faso's achievement. His rage is about control, because control is the foundation of empire. To control a people is to control their dreams. To lose that control is to lose the illusion of supremacy. Imagine it, the most powerful men on earth, sitting in luxury hotels, sipping imported wines, yet trembling at the thought of a young African engineer tightening bolts on a spacecraft. They are not afraid of steel. They are afraid of symbolism. A spaceship in Africa is not just a machine. It is a declaration. It says to the world, we no longer orbit your system. We are charting our own course. And so Trump fumes. He demands reports, intelligence briefings, names of collaborators. He wants to know who funded it, who designed it, who dared to dream outside the shadow of the West. But the answer humiliates him. It was not France. It was not Neto. It was not any foreign hand. It was the people. The farmers who contributed their earnings. The students who stayed awake at night sketching designs. The soldiers who protected the hangar with loyalty and discipline. The youth who became inventors instead of migrants. Trump's anger is the sound of empire, realizing it is no longer the only voice in the room. It is the howl of a system that has thrived on dependency, now confronted with independence. And his fury in Morocco is more than personal. It is symbolic of the panic gripping Western capitals. Because if Burkina Faso can rise, if one small nation can break gravity, then the lie is exposed. Africa was never incapable. Africa was only interrupted. Brothers and sisters, remember this? Their anger is proof of our success. Their outrage is the shadow cast by our light. Trump's rage in Morocco is not the end of our story. It is the beginning. Because anger fades, but invention lasts. Empires crumble, but ideas take flight. And when the first Burkina spaceship launches into the sky, even the most powerful will be forced to look up. Not in dominance, but in awe. When the world pictures Africa, they imagine poverty, chaos, and dependence. But step inside the hidden hangars of Burkina Faso, and you will see a different truth. You will see young men and women, sleeves rolled up, grace on their hands, sparks flying as steel bends to their will. They are not waiting for foreign aid. They are not begging for permission. They are building. And what they are building is not only a spaceship, it is the architecture of a future the West never wanted us to dream. Think of a spaceship. It is not built by kings or generals. It is built by engineers, by dreamers, by youth who believe the impossible can be made possible. That is our youth today. For too long, they were told their place was as laborers in foreign mines or migrants on perilous seas. For too long, their intelligence was exported, their talent drained, their creativity suffocated under systems designed to keep them small. But no more. The youth of Burkina Faso are refusing to be passengers. They are claiming the cockpit. Every nut tightened, every code written, every design drawn in the soil with chalk is an act of rebellion. These young inventors are saying, we are not here to repair the engines of empire. We are here to launch our own. And this terrifies the world, because once young Africans realize they can build their own destiny, no border can contain them, no propaganda can silence them, and no power can stop them. I see in their eyes the same fire that ignited our ancestors when they broke colonial chains. But this fire burns differently. It is not only about resistance, it is about creation. They are not just saying no to exploitation, they are saying yes to innovation. They are not just rejecting oppression, they are building alternatives. Where once a young man carried water on his back for survival, today he welds metal for spacecraft. Where once a young woman was told her worth was silence, today she codes the software that guides a vessel into the stars. Understand this, youth are not Africa's problem. They are Africa's propulsion system. They are the rocket fuel that lifts us out of dependency and into self-reliance. And when they are given dignity, opportunity, and the tools of invention, they do not imitate, they innovate. They do not copy, they create. The West knows this. That is why they fear it. Because a youth that invents does not beg. A youth that builds does not kneel. A youth that takes command of the spaceship of destiny will never again accept crumbs from the table of empire. Brothers and sisters, the cockpit of history is open. The question is not whether we will fly, but whether we will trust our youth to pilot the journey. And I tell you this, they are ready. They are steady. They are not passengers in someone else's story. They are the engineers of destiny. And when their hands grip the controls, Africa will not only rise, it will soar. Imagine the spaceship in its infancy. Before it can pierce the atmosphere, it needs a launch pad. Solid ground, a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of a dream that defies gravity. In Burkina Faso, every road we lay, every bridge we build, every brick we place, that is our launch pad. And make no mistake, every kilometer we construct with our own hands is not just engineering, it is rebellion. For too long, we were told that we could not build without the West. They said, you need our loans. You need our companies. You need our approval. And so, generation after generation, we watched roads crumble while foreign banks collected their interest. We watched bridges collapse while foreign powers flew overhead, mocking us from the skies. But today, something new is happening. Today, the soil of Burkina Faso is being carved into highways not by outsiders, but by its own sons and daughters. The cement is mixed with dignity, the steel reinforced with pride, the blueprint drawn not in Paris or Washington, but here, under our sun. Every kilometer completed without IMF signatures, without French contractors, without Western aid is a declaration of independence louder than any speech. It says we are no longer the colony. We are the builders. And this terrifies the world. Because they know that the launch pad is almost ready. Think about it, what is a road if not a pathway into the future? Each stretch connects a farmer to a market, a child to a school, a doctor to a village. Each road is a lifeline that says, we will not let our vegetables rot in the fields, while foreign aid lectures us on efficiency. Each bridge is a promise that no river can divide us. Each kilometer is not only concrete and gravel, it is defiance solidified. It is the foundation upon which the spaceship of Africa will one day rise. Do you see what this means? Infrastructure is not neutral. It is political. It is spiritual. A road built in freedom carries the energy of liberation. A road built in dependency carries the weight of chains. That is why the West grows restless. That is why their leaders grow furious. Because if Burkina Faso can build roads without them, then what else can we build? If we can create our launch pad in silence, then one day they will look up and see our spaceship cutting across their skies. Every kilometer is a message to our youth. You are the architects. You are the pilots. You are the destiny shapers of this continent. And every kilometer is a warning to the empire, your grip is slipping. Your time is ending. Your roads no longer lead us. We chart our own course. So let it be known in Burkina Faso, a kilometer is not just a measure of distance. It is a measure of freedom. And with every meter we advance, the countdown begins. The launch pad is almost complete. The engines of destiny are warming. The journey has already begun. Every spaceship test ignites not only engines, but panic. The louder our engines roar, the more tremors run through the halls of power in Paris, Washington, and beyond. Do you think they sleep peacefully when they hear whispers of a hidden hangar in Burkina Faso? Do you think they laugh when reports surface that roads are being built without French companies, that bridges are rising without IMF loans, that blueprints exist that no Western consultant ever signed? No. They pace their marble offices, they slam their fists on oak tables, and they call emergency sessions behind closed doors. The truth is simple, the empire fears not our weakness, but our awakening. They are not terrified of poverty. They have profited from it for centuries. What unsettles them is the image of a young Burkinabe engineer sketching spaceship wings on a chalkboard, or a group of villagers laying roads under the hot sun without waiting for foreign aid. What haunts them is the silence, the realization that we are moving forward without asking for permission. Picture it. In Paris, advisors rush into the Élysée Palace. They whisper to Macron, Mr. President, they are building without us. In Washington, generals frown at satellite images showing construction sites lit at night by nothing but lanterns, yet progressing faster than their billion-dollar projects. And in Morocco, Trump explodes in fury, shouting that Africa has no right to secrets, no right to ships, no right to sovereignty. His voice is not just anger. It is fear dressed in arrogance. But why such fear? Because the empire knows what every road and every invention means. They understand that once the launch pad is ready, Africa will no longer orbit their economy. We will launch into our own trajectory. And if Burkina Faso, a nation they dismissed as small and powerless, can do it, then every African nation can follow. That is the nightmare keeping them awake. They have tried everything to contain us. Misinformation, economic sabotage, threats dressed as diplomacy. But what they cannot contain is imagination. What they cannot stop is the youth seeing themselves not as beggars, but as builders. They can lock vaults, but they cannot lock vision. And so, each step forward we take becomes a spark of terror in their chests. The spaceship is not just metal and circuits. It is a metaphor that rattles their empires. Because they see clearly, if we can construct ships in secret, we can construct freedom in the open. If we can master our own roads, we can master the skies. And if one African nation dares to rise, it becomes a gravitational pull for all others. This is the fear of the empire. That Africa, long grounded, will finally lift off. That their satellites will one day look down not on a continent bound by debt and division, but on a constellation of nations moving freely through the stars. So let them fear. For fear is the first sign that their empire is crumbling. Every great launch begins with silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of focus. The world thinks nothing is happening in Burkina Faso because the hangars are quiet, because the workers move at night, because the blueprints are hidden beneath ordinary papers. But silence is not stillness. Silence is preparation. And when the clock begins to tick, it cannot be stopped. The countdown has begun. You may not hear it on Western news channels. France will not report it. Washington will deny it. Morocco may shout in anger, but shouting cannot turn back time. A countdown is not a negotiation. It is the inevitable rhythm of destiny. With every tick, we move closer to ignition. With every heartbeat of the youth, the engines warm. Look around you. The young are not waiting for handouts anymore. They are soldering wires, sketching designs, writing code, laying bricks. They are farmers planting seeds, not only in soil, but in the future. They are teachers training children not in dependency, but in discovery. Each classroom becomes a cockpit. Each workshop, a control panel. Each dream, a thruster. That is why the empire trembles. Because once the countdown reaches zero, there will be no force on Earth that can ground us. Think of a rocket as it stands on the launch pad. For years, it looks like nothing more than a cylinder of metal. Useless, idle. But deep inside, energy is being stored, connections tightened, circuits tested. That is where Burkina Faso is today. To outsiders, it looks like a small nation in the Sahel, struggling against poverty and pressure. But beneath the surface, pressure is building. The pressure of imagination, the pressure of unity, the pressure of dignity refusing to bow. And the countdown is not only for us. Every African child hears the ticking. Every mother carrying water across the desert. Every farmer tilling the soil without machines. Every student walking miles to school. All of them are part of this countdown. The spaceship we are building does not belong to a single nation. It belongs to a generation. When it launches, it will carry the hopes of the continent, and it will shatter the myth that Africa must always wait for permission. This is why they scramble. This is why Macron makes late night calls. Why foreign diplomats sweat in closed rooms. Why Trump screams in Morocco. They know the engines are warming. They know the silence is ending. They know that soon the roar will drown out their commands. And so, I say to you, do not let fear slow your steps. Do not let doubt weaken your resolve. When you hear the ticking of the countdown, understand, it is not only machinery, it is your own heartbeat. It is history itself preparing to launch. The countdown has begun, and when the clock strikes zero, the world will no longer ask if Africa can rise. They will only watch in awe as Africa takes flight. And then, it happens. The engines ignite, the ground shakes, the dust rises, the silence that once defined us explodes into a roar that no empire can silence. Lift off. Burkina Faso has left the launch pad of dependency, and with it Africa begins to ascend. For centuries, we were told we could not fly. They said the weight of our history was too heavy, the pull of poverty too strong, the chains of colonization too tight. They said Africa was a passenger, never a pilot. But in that instant of ignition, the world sees the lie unravel. The spaceship rises. The flames beneath it are not fueled by foreign loans or IMF dictates. They are fueled by the sweat of our farmers, the brilliance of our engineers, the courage of our youth, the prayers of our ancestors. As the ship pierces the clouds, something else happens, the chains fall. The old contracts lose their grip. The treaties that bound us in dependency are nothing but ashes in the exhaust of our engines. From orbit, the world looks different. No longer divided into colonizers and colonized, no longer measured by what we lack. From up here, Africa sees herself, vast, abundant, unbroken. Liftoff is more than a moment of pride. It is a declaration. To the IMFD, we no longer orbit around your interest rates. To France, we no longer revolve around your dictates. To Washington, we are not satellites circling your empire. From this day, Africa charts her own trajectory, guided not by foreign compasses, but by her own stars. And do you know the most powerful part? It is not just the ship in the sky. It is the millions on the ground, looking upward, realizing that this launch belongs to them. A farmer in Ouagadougou, who thought his labor was forgotten. A girl in Bamako who dreamed of science but had no books. A mother in Dakar who prayed her son would see a better tomorrow. They all look up and see that Africa has taken flight. And they whisper to themselves, if we can launch this, what else can we not do? But liftoff is not without resistance. As the ship climbs, turbulence shakes it. Sanctions, propaganda, threats. They try to pull us back down with fear. They shout that our engines are unstable, that our dreams are reckless. Yet every tremor is met with resilience. Every flame is fed by unity. And slowly, the roar overcomes the doubt, the altitude increases, and Africa enters orbit. Orbit is freedom. It means we are no longer bound by the gravity of dependency. It means we can see ourselves clearly, without distortion, without permission. It means we are not asking, not begging, not negotiating. We are existing in a space we built ourselves. And as Africa circles the Earth in her own orbit, One truth becomes undeniable: the future will not be written in Paris, London, or Washington. It will be written here, by the hands that built the engines, by the voices that believed in the impossible, by the children who will never again doubt that Africa can touch the stars. Once the ship leaves Earth's gravity, a silence falls. Not the silence of oppression, but the silence of awe. For in the dark sea of space, we see not just one vessel, but many. Across the horizon, lights flicker to life. Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Ethiopia, Senegal, each one a starship breaking away from dependency, rising into its own orbit. This is not a solitary voyage. It is a constellation. For too long, Africa was told it could only exist as fragments, as scattered pieces fighting for scraps, as borders drawn by foreign hands. But here, in this new sky, we see the truth. Each nation is not a rival star, but part of a constellation that shines brighter together. Burkina Faso may have ignited the first engine, but it was only the spark. Now the fire spreads. Each youth led uprising, each reclaimed resource, each defiant voice adds another light to the Pan-African sky. Imagine it: fleets of African ships moving in formation, powered not by debt, but by dignity. Communicating not in the language of colonizers, but in the rhythms of our ancestors. Protecting one another not with foreign soldiers, but with our own solidarity. The world below watches in disbelief. France wonders how control slipped through its fingers. The IMF recalculates, realizing its gravity has weakened. Washington paces, asking how a people who once begged now build entire fleets. And yet, the answer is simple. We remembered who we are. We remembered that our ancestors charted the stars long before Europe knew the meaning of astronomy. We remembered that we were never passengers, we were navigators. Once that memory was restored, the future became inevitable. The constellation is not just symbolic. It is strategic. One ship can be isolated, sanctioned, attacked, but a fleet cannot. When Burkina Faso aligns with Mali, when Ghana aligns with Guinea, when South Africa aligns with Ethiopia, the enemy cannot divide us. Their sanctions crumble. Their propaganda loses its power. For every story they write to diminish one nation, another nation rises to contradict it. And for the youth watching from the villages and cities, this constellation is more than politics. It is hope made visible. It is proof that their energy, their inventions, their courage are not wasted. It is proof that unity is not an idea. It is an orbit we can enter, a reality we can sustain. The horizon expands. The constellation grows. And suddenly, the night sky is no longer dark. It is illuminated by African brilliance, by African defiance, by African destiny. From orbit, Africa no longer looks divided by lines on a map. She looks whole, radiant, eternal. This is the new horizon. Not one ship, not one leader, not one nation. A constellation of freedom, unstoppable in its brightness, undeniable in its unity. And as the world stares upward in disbelief, Africa whispers back only one truth: the future is ours, and it is already shining. There comes a moment in every voyage when the silence of the universe is broken, not by sound, but by revelation. As the African constellation of ships stabilizes in orbit, the message is clear. We are no longer passengers on a foreign vessel. We are commanders of our own fleet. For centuries, others charted our course, dictating our borders, our resources, even our destinies. But now, here in the vastness of the cosmic stage, we proclaim Africa commands the stars. Do you understand the weight of this? For generations, our people were told they belonged only to the soil, chained to mines, plantations, and sweatshops. The West mocked us, saying we had no future beyond their charity. But look at us now. Our youth designing ships, our engineers building engines, our leaders charting galaxies of possibility. The very land they sought to strip from us has become the launch pad for our greatest asset. France may rage, Washington may worry, Brussels may calculate. But their fury is nothing compared to the calm confidence of a people who finally remember their power. For power is not in the threats of missiles or the promises of loans. Power is in sovereignty. Power is in unity. Power is in the ability to look up at the night sky and know we belong there too. This message is not just for Africa. It is for the world. To Asia, to Latin America, to every nation once bent under the yoke of empire, look to the African horizon. We did not beg, we did not wait, we did not ask permission. We built, we resisted, we rose. And so can you. But make no mistake, this is not the end of a journey. It is the beginning of an era. An era where the wealth of Africa fuels Africans, where the genius of African youth invents for Africa, where no foreign power decides the value of our land, our lives, or our labor. An era where we are not divided by language or flag, but united by destiny. And for the young listening tonight, whether in Ouagadougou, Bamako, Accra, or Johannesburg, this final message is yours to carry. You are not passengers waiting for a seat on someone else's ship. You are builders, pilots, inventors, dreamers. The engines of this fleet run on your courage. The maps of this galaxy are drawn with your imagination. Without you, there is no constellation. Without you, there is no future. So let the world hear it one last time: Africa is not for sale. Africa is not for colonization. Africa is not for pity. Africa is for the stars. And as the fleet of nations burns across the horizon, glowing brighter than any empire before it, we leave the world with only one truth. We are here, we are rising, and the stars now answer to Africa.